Good afternoon and welcome to Anita Talks History and Genealogy. I'm so glad that you all could join me. And I wanted to ask everyone to please like and share, and if you can, get a paid subscription. And if you can, purchase some of my merchandise, especially like the cups. I have mugs, and if you're back east, I'm sure you can use a mug because it's cold. Get a mug and drink some chocolate, uh, and that keeps our channel going. Also, when you share, you know, with others. And so, what I'm talking about today is the 250th anniversary of these United States, which is basically from the time of the Revolutionary War. So this is going to be July 4th. And what I wanted to bring up was with you all is the fact that my ancestors were in the Revolutionary War, and many of our ancestors were in the Revolutionary War. And the fact that we are being excluded from any celebration of this July 4th that is being run by Trump and his administration, those people who are mostly immigrants, those on his cabinet, those people are mostly businessmen. Peter Thiel, he's got Hegseth, he's got all these people that are like maybe like Trump himself is a third generation. He ain't even a third generation American. His grandfather was born in Germany, and his father was born in America, and so he's a second generation American. He's not, but he's in charge of it, and he's making sure that we, those of us whose ancestors were in the Revolutionary War, that we are not being celebrated. Our ancestors and their contribution to these United States is being ignored by this Trump administration. And very little is being said about it, So I have my ancestor Charles Lewis and his brother Ambrose. They were seamen out of Fredericksburg, Virginia, and then they were soldiers. They served 3 years as seamen, and then they became foot soldiers, and they fought at the Battle of Camden, South Carolina. So so they're a part, they have they have these rosters, and they're part of the rosters. And I was accepted into the DAR, the Daughters of the American Revolution, because of my ancestors and their contribution to the Revolutionary War. And that's Charles and Ambrose. And then on the other side, I have Raleigh Penn. Raleigh Penn was from Lancaster County, which is now called Lancaster County, Lancaster and Northumberland County. It was, what they did was they went there, the colonial government went there to where the Indian village was, the Wicomico. I think it's, they spell it two different ways, Yeocomico, or Wicomico. So it's Wicomico village. That was the land of my ancestors. When the government came in and colonized, the English came in and colonized, they broke it up, and they called it, they broke the tribal lands up, and they called Lancaster. Lancaster is a name from England, and Northumberland, that's another English name. That's not what the tribe, knew itself to be. And they were tributary to the Powhatan. So they were all Algonquin. And Raleigh Penn, my ancestor, was in the Revolutionary War. As a young man, his father had been subjected to prison because they said that he had not paid his tithes and he was not attending church. In other words, they were saying that he was not, you know, doing his Christian duty. And so his father was taken away, and he was indentured to, as a copper. And a copper is, like big hogshead. There was hogsheads that they put tobacco and other um, other corn and whatever. They would put them into hogsheads, and that was how they were, you know, um, selling them, moving them around, because most of the stuff, like the tobacco, was going back to England um, or Europe. Uh, so he was fined, and then he disappeared. And so Raleigh was and his brothers and sisters, they were indentured out. And when Raleigh finished his indenture, he moved inward. He left Lancaster and he went to Yorktown, and then he wound up marrying my marrying Sarah Red Cross Evans, and she's my direct ancestor, and he's my direct ancestor, and they went up. Sarah had land; she had been given land by her father, and these were people that were indigenous. They were, we know they were indigenous because they left a record of them fighting the colonial government, who were trying to say they were Negroes and that they were to be enslaved. So they were enslaving their children, and they actually took them to court to fight against them, saying they were slaves or they were Africans of African descent. So we have a record. We know that they were not of African descent. They were indigenous people. And for them to be saying, oh, you're a Negro or you're a mulatto or you're whatever, they would have had to be like my color. They weren't a white-looking Indian, Indian people. They were brown and they were fighting. So Raleigh and Sarah got married, and they moved up to Amherst County, and Raleigh joined a unit out of Amherst County. First, he was a Minuteman, so that when they talk about the Minutemen, if anybody's had history, the Minutemen came out. They talk about them as if Boston is the only place they had Minutemen, but Raleigh was also a Minuteman. They were asking or demanding that any landowners, that you had to be a part of the militia. So he was more or less drafted. And on one of the census records, Raleigh Penn is listed as a white man. So this was a tax record. He was listed as a white man. But then when they come back again, he has mulattoes in the household, and he becomes a mulatto. So that's how they were figuring out the race of people, right? But these are indigenous people, and so, but these Europeans are coming over, looking, coming over from wherever they come from, where everybody looked like them, and trying to figure out who we were, like we were strangers. Here we are, our ancestors are in our own land, living their lives, and they're over here trying to decide, oh, what race are you? What race are they? You're in our land talking about what race, breaking stuff down to races and stuff, like everything was being done where they came from. In England, their class-based society. So they brought over a class-based, race-based system of classifying people. And they actually think that they're clever, that they're so intelligent. Look how intelligent we are. We broke it down to race and class. It's the most ignorant, unchristian thing that you can do. And I'll leave that at that. But Raleigh Penn, he was a part of a unit that joined up with Lafayette, and Lafayette is one a French. He was a French general, and and his right hand man, he was a general. Wait a minute. Lafayette was a colonel. His general was a Haitian man, and a dark-skinned Haitian man. And so when Raleigh, the unit that came from Amherst County, joined up with Lafayette, and they went to Yorktown, and they were a part of the battle, the siege of Yorktown, which is George Washington was there, and they were all, all of the soldiers that were under Washington were there, and that was the last battle of the Revolutionary War, and it was the winning battle. And not only was Raleigh Penn there, so was his brother. His brother was Robert Penn, and Robert's sons, Billy and Billy James and John and Robert. I think Robert the third was there. Anyway, his sons were there. So we know who was, what went on, because John, one of the sons, he filed for a pension, and he detailed that his father was at the siege of Yorktown with him and his brothers, and that one of his brothers, James, got killed. And so these are my family, my blood relatives, my ancestors who were in the Revolutionary War. And Raleigh Penn, when he went into the Revolutionary War, he owned land, lots of land. That was he got land from the Revolutionary War, and he got land from his Sarah, who was his wife. She got land, and they took all their land. They gave it to squatters. So they allowed the Europeans to come in after the Revolutionary War and squat and take the land. So that most of my relatives that are still there, if they're on any land, they paid for it. They made it so that you had to go back and pay for land that had already been given to you. And this is the kind of dirt they do. And now here's Donald Trump, an immigrant, who is trying to wipe out our ancestors' history. Raleigh Penn got recognition from the DAR, so there are family members who are part of the DAR because of my research and finding that Raleigh Penn was in the Revolutionary War. And so there in the DAR, I'm a member of the Monacan Indian Nation because Sarah was a Monacan. Sarah Penn, Raleigh's wife, she's the Monacan. While Raleigh is the Wacomical. They're Algonquin. The Monacan Indians are Sioux. We're from the Great Sioux Nation. So we're kind of mixed race, indigenous people. And I'm bringing this up, and I'm going to keep bringing it up because the 250th anniversary is coming up, and there were many indigenous people. There were many free blacks. In fact, they were begging blacks to come and fight on one side or the other. The British were promising blacks freedom if they would fight on their side. And, so they were on both sides. And who's giving them recognition if we don't talk about it? I mean, here, Trump, a 5-time draft dodger, has the audacity to wipe out our history. Someone who refused to even go to war for this country, and he's starting wars now that our young people are supposed to go and die in. For what? Anyway. So let's talk about this. It's on July the 4th, the 250th anniversary. And let's not forget, the contributions that we've made to this country. Don't let Project 2025 sweep our history under the rug. We just began to uncover it. And let's keep it going. Thank you all for tuning in, and I'll be with you shortly. Let's keep on talking, keep the conversation going, and thank you. Bye.